Hey guys, today I want to do another game review and I want to review Mass Effect Andromeda, which is a game I was pretty disappointed by. It came out in 2017 and I was very excited to play it because I loved the original trilogy so much, which I made a video about separately. And I played it twice. I played it first, I borrowed my friend's PlayStation to play it because I was that excited about it. And I played it. I didn't even have a television at that time, so I played it on my computer monitor. And yeah, I was pretty disappointed. And then I played it again. I bought it. So like the first time, I borrowed my friend's copy, and the second time, I guess I bought it when it was on sale, and I had my own PlayStation and my own television, and I wanted to give it a second shot. I'm looking at at a Twitter thread that I wrote, and I'm just gonna quickly run through it. Replaying Mass Effect Andromeda, I was disappointed by the game in several ways, so I'm not sure why I'm replaying it, but the heart wants what it wants. 3 to 4 hours in and the game still feels cold, sterile, forced. Some of the characters' hair and faces draw too much attention for being oddly made even after the patch, but that's forgivable in my book. The Nexus is the space in the game. The Nexus feels clinical and bureaucratic, the crew is underwhelming. What's kind of upsetting on second playthrough is seeing all the potential. It could have been a great game. The building blocks are all there, but it was sloppily handled. The most important thing has to be the motivations of the player character and their crew. It's interesting to me that I'm choosing to replay this rather than something else that I know to be a better experience, but I think some part of me is trying to troubleshoot it. Why did it miss the mark? There's a shadow of a good game in here and I want to figure it out. I mean, it's cool that the chief of an outpost on a distant planet in a different galaxy is so and so. I think the game lacks conviction along the fundamental spine of its storytelling. Like, it doesn't propel the player forward. It just assumes that the player will play because she's committed to completing it. The player's interest and attention is taken for granted. So the premise of the game is that you're a pathfinder. You're trying to set up settlements and colonies for the human race in the Andromeda galaxy. So the human race is currently in the Milky Way galaxy, and in Mass Effect Andromeda, the player and their crew leave the Milky Way on a spaceship in cryo freezing and whatever. And yeah, so you're a pathfinder. You're supposed to set up settlements and colonies for the human race, which is interesting. But the drama and conflict isn't properly rooted in that. It's sort of peppered around loosely, haphazardly, without focus. I keep playing. I've completed 2 of the 6 characters' loyalty missions so far, Vetras and Koras. BioWare is pretty consistently good at this. They make you like a character more after you've helped them out through a personal problem. I talked about that in the previous video. But the characters as a set really could have used more work. Like, if you're making a game where the player has a squad, the most critical question you have to ask for each squad member is, why does the player care about this person? And they seem to not have thought too hard about this one, which is an inexcusable, sloppy decision in an RPG. You know, I was having a moderately decent time replaying it, and I was trying to articulate what was underwhelming about it, and it became clear when, like, years later, I went and looked back at the original trilogy, which had amazing writing. It was really good. And after I finished my playthrough, I went through some photos and recollected my thoughts. The game does have some good moments, and it has some gorgeous views in-game. You can tell that there was some love and thought put into the game, and it really could have been great. The most offensive thing about the game to me is the villain and the way they treated the protagonist's relationship with the villain. I'll spoil this for you. I don't feel bad spoiling it for you. After 70 or so hours of play, you build up to a confrontation moment where the villain just falls from somewhere and drops dead. Like, there's no confrontation, there's no conversation, there's no exchange. He doesn't even seem to realize that he got owned. There's no what, how, or this isn't over, or any of that dumb satisfaction. He literally drops like a turd, like he died from natural causes or something unrelated to your actions. If they had followed through the implications of Pathfinder, it would have made a tremendous difference. But, apparently they were understaffed and overwhelmed and kept changing directions or so. Still, I believe that if they had a couple of more months to work on the game, they could have corrected it quite dramatically. So somebody I had a conversation with said that switching from Commander Shepard to Pathfinder Rider was the problem because people were used to Commander Shepard and they wanted more of a commander character with more of a commanding presence. I don't agree that has to be the case. In fact, I think if they did that, then it would have fallen into the trap of being too familiar, right? So I think that swapping out Commander for the Pathfinder was absolutely the right idea, but where they failed is that they didn't chase down the implications of that decision. A Pathfinder has a heavy burden with important consequential decisions to make, but the game doesn't honor this accurately. Yeah, that's most of my tweets. Let me scroll back and scroll around. Oh, I have more notes. There was a build-up at the end of the game where everybody that you've kind of helped comes along to support you, and I was very happy with that. I think it's a trope that delivers, and it isn't worth subverting. If the player has invested hours and hours helping out other characters, you should bring them back in the finale. It makes the heart sore, right? There were no really difficult choices to make. I can't even remember what. I think there was one like side quest about AI that was somewhat interesting, but apart from that, most of the choices were not that compelling or consequential. I didn't get a proper boss fight after all the frustration with the Archon, who's the villain. I was hoping to shoot him in the face a few times. I didn't get to do that. The world was beautiful. The vaults were beautiful. Every planet has its own character, which is lovely. The most frustrating thing for me was not the character faces or the glitches in game or whatever, but whenever navigation was a struggle. There were several instances where I spent maybe 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get somewhere, and I was misled because the map implied that I'd have to go through one way when actually it's a whole another way. That was a frustration I had with Borderlands 3 as well. I spent too much time fighting the same enemies over and over again. There were like a dozen different enemy types. There's like wildlife, fiend, raiders, regular sharpshooters, Hydra robots, cat, remnant, like about 20 enemy types altogether. But it's like four of each race. Combat in general is fun. Biotic charge is awesome. The teammates in the game were underwhelming and uninteresting. I moderately liked Jarl and Drac and maybe PB and maybe Vetra, but I didn't care for Korra or can't remember Liam. Right, Horizon Zero Dawn was a much better game. And do I have any more notes? Yeah, I like the vaults. I'm still upset at how badly Mass Effect Andromeda messed up the ending. Yeah, that's about all that I've tweeted. Mass Effect Andromeda, for example, had fun combat, but most of the side quests felt trite and bolted on, and you don't grow to care about the characters, which is an unforgivable sin in RPGs. And Witcher 3 was the opposite of that, where the combat was alright, but like the side quests are great and they're truly world building, and you really, every side quest that you do, it feels like it makes the world richer. It feels like every side quest in The Witcher, which I'll talk about separately, feels like something that you could have you can ignore if you want to, but if you follow through on it, there's like one or two kind of duds here and there, and a couple of funny ones like helping an old lady find her pan, which is funny enough that it's a bit of a meme, I think. But other than that, I thought it was great, The Witcher. A lot of people complain about things like in-game bugs and glitches, but I believe it's possible to have a very glitchy, very buggy game that's still great. And Andromeda failed to be great because of poor, sloppy writing and user interface. Oh yeah, the things about like the weapon upgrading and like the resource collection and stuff was annoying. Right, okay, that's all my tweets. So I'm just gonna spend another 5 minutes talking about the whole thing again. I wanted Andromeda to be good so bad, and I'm a very forgiving gamer. I'm very willing to let bugs slide. People are saying the facial animation was bad. That's fine. I don't care about that. But the writing was bad, and the setups were bad. You don't get a sense of the stakes. Early in the game, Ryder's father gets killed, which is okay, that part's moderately well done, but they barely dig into the feelings of the character, You really need to have like a in telling a story in a video game, RPG specifically, you need to have theme, right? You need to have a path that you're pathfinder, a journey that the character is going on, and it needs to be meaningful in some way. The characters that you have, so how I would have written the side characters is, you want each of those characters to have some dominant question, some dominant, conflict that they have to deal with, and then your characters. And Mass Effect's original trilogy dealt with this so well. Every character's loyalty mission was interesting, and having helped them through their difficult decision, you care for them, right? And so let's go back to first principles and basics. You are a pathfinder from Earth, and you are in a new galaxy. The new galaxy should feel foreign and dangerous and hostile, and you should feel nervous and uncomfortable, like you don't belong there. Like, that feeling should be, at least in the first half of the game, you should feel strongly that you don't quite belong here, and that you're not accepted, and you're an unwelcome person / stranger / foreigner. And I wouldn't be surprised if the writers were not the right people to understand that point of view, potentially. But everyone has some form of that experience, right? Everyone knows what it's like to be a bit of an outsider. First day at school, right? For example. What else? Combat was great. I can't complain about that. I would have, if I could just kind of jump into the game just for the combat from time to time, I would do it. It's kind of fun. But like all the quest elements, things like scan plants for some biologists, and so you'll see all these. Every planet you go to, you have to find some plant somewhere and scan it, and it's not that interesting. It could have been made more interesting by saying that you're trying to feed people, for example, right? You're a pathfinder. You're trying to feed people and give them food, right? Because without it, they can't survive. You need to really feel the sense of difficulty that the colonists are feeling. You don't really feel that. Everyone just seems kind of, we're walking around, they don't seem particularly frazzled. They don't seem particularly, it's just, everyone's just out and about, right? And I do believe that if the story was better, and even if the final conflict with the villain was done better, I bet people would have less of a bad taste in their mouth after the game. Really, the last 15 to 20 minutes of a video game can make people forgive the first 70 hours if you do it really, really well, right? But they don't do that. They don't let you confront the Archon. They don't let you have a conversation. It's like, anime does this really well. At some point I was rewatching Samurai X, Rurouni Kenshin, right? And a lot of those battles, like the battles get drawn out over 4 or 5 episodes, where one of the protagonists is facing off against one of the antagonists. And truly, it seems to me often that the fight, while cinematic and epic and whatnot, it's almost like an excuse, or it's a head fake or whatever. It's a battleground. The fight itself is a philosophical battleground. Like they're exchanging blows, but really what's happening is you see their respective worldviews collide, right? And you as the viewer are forced to think about the merits of the respective worldviews, right? And even Winter Soldier, I thought, did a pretty good job of conveying like the kind of security obsessed tyrant. Like they're not just trying to rule the world for the sake of ruling the world, but it's kind of like we don't believe that humanity can be entrusted with its own security, in a sense, right? Like I don't believe that entirely myself, but I will consider it. It's a point of view that's grounded in evidence, right? That it's informed by something, and then you have to think about it, and that thinking challenges you. And I think people do want to be challenged in stories. Some people will say that they would just want like a big action flick that doesn't require them to think at all. that's a choice you can make. And if that is the choice that you want to make in a video game, then you have to make sure that those, set pieces and explosions and stuff are really well done. And I think the Uncharted series does a pretty good job of that in terms of being cinematic, but it also has good storytelling, so that's not a fantastic example. Titanfall 2 also had good storytelling. I'm trying to think of an example of a game that is beautiful cinematically, doesn't make you think. I guess I played one of the Modern Warfare, one of the Call of Duty games, like Black Ops 3. That was, it's a shooter. I didn't have a ton of fun playing it. It was alright. I completed it. But, I didn't go in expecting a story. When people play an RPG game, a Mass Effect game, after having played 1, 2, and 3, they may not be expecting Commander Shepard 2.0, but they do expect a role-playing game set in space that, feels open and expansive. And there were some things like it was annoying how the animations for traveling from planet to planet, like they force you to watch the whole thing, which is really slow. And you can't check your email. there's a thing where you have to go to your ship to check your email, which is annoying. Like, they could have fixed that. But those are all those are all forgivable sins. I'm only bringing those things up because the game was already, you know what I mean? People will forgive bumps on the road if you bring them somewhere interesting. But if you bring them somewhere uninteresting, then every bump on the road was for nothing. So the bumps become doubly annoying, right? And I think very often people then fixate on the bumps, thinking that, you don't like the bumps, we should reduce the bumps. But you shouldn't actually be trying to reduce the bumps. You should be bringing the player to a more interesting journey, to a more interesting conclusion, right? What else? Pathfinder, colonizing all the planets. It was very cool how after you've done the vault on each planet, it gets terraformed, and so each planet is kind of uninhabitable for a different reason. Like, one is too cold, one is too hot, one has too much radiation, something else with some other one, and you fix each of those things and the planet looks different. It looks less inhospitable, which is cool. Yeah, I would have liked to see more conflict. I think in general the game didn't even think very much about the points of conflict. So in the original trilogy, there's the Solarians and the Krogan about the genophage and whether or not, is this species a violent and warring species that should be, artificially suppressed? Is that moral, right? And these people say yes because they're a threat, and these people say no, what the hell, this is it's a form of genocide in a sense. And then there's the AI versus the masters and the creators and the created relationship between the Geth and the Quarians in the original trilogy. And even things like, I think Commander Shepard's relationship with the Alliance Navy and their relationship with information being relayed up the chain of command. Do you respect the chain of command? That kind of thing. In Andromeda, because all of humanity that has made it to Andromeda is a pretty small overall crew, right? There's a breakaway, so there's a mutiny at some point, and some people broke away to form like a raiders colony. I can't remember the specifics. Sloan and friends. And that should have been played up more. It's like, there's a splinter group, there's a mutiny of some kind. That's, a mutiny is a big thing, right? Like, what is authority? Who gets to decide? How do you make decisions, right? And again, I've said elsewhere that in every difficult scenario, so like with Last of Us, it's a zombie apocalypse, right? With Jaws, it's a shark. But the point is, when there's some kind of threat, people have to deal with it. And some kind of difficult thing happening, right? Climate change, whatever, coronavirus, right? Something difficult, a stressful thing, like that. You when you put stresses on a community, there are fault lines that were already there, but the stresses make it become more apparent, right? And so, if you ask me again, like, what are the fault lines that Mass Effect Andromeda explores, I can't really tell you. There's one new race, which is what are they called? I can't even remember what they're called. I don't know, the new race, right? It's a new race. You have a party member from that race, which is just say what his name, Jarl's from that race, and they are experiencing the same thing that happened to the Proteans in the first three games, where they're kind of turned into zombie husks. In this case, they're called the Cat, right? And then you find out that all the Cat were formerly of this native Andromeda race. And yeah, you get to make one decision about whether or not you destroy the base, but it doesn't feel very consequential. And yeah, I just felt like there's this one mission, there's one fun thing where it's like movie night for your whole crew, which is kind of fun. Like, you bring all your crew together, but like, oh my god, you have to buy popcorn and alcohol and find the movie, and it's like you just have to. They make it such a long and tedious thing that's like, okay, I gotta go and collect this. Okay, I gotta go and collect that. I gotta investigate this. In general, I think they just maybe they were overly modular about the bits of story that they wanted to include. Yeah, man, I don't want to make this a very long video because getting people to spend a lot of time listening to a video about Andromeda, I feel is almost not worth your time, right? Like, it's just sad. It's sad that Andromeda wasn't better, right? It's sad that Cora was kind of over-invested in her worship of the Asari, and then she found out that the leader character lady that she was looking up to, wasn't perfect, and then she has a rough time, and then you help her through it. But like, her worship of that leader was so over the top that you don't even feel sorry for her, really. And yeah, I don't know. Drake was alright. You help his son or like his nephew or something. Vetra and his sister was a interesting dynamic. You do feel so. Vetra, I thought, was one of the better written characters in the game. Her sister wants to kind of use her hacking skills to help the mission in some way, and she kind of gets caught, and then Vetra has to go and save her, and you help Vetra save her, and yeah, you feel that sisterly love and kind of the navigating of boundaries, and the older sister being kind of the sole guardian of the younger sister, wants her to be safe but doesn't want to be overbearing, and there's that conflict there. That's nice. I remember now, that I can think back about it and kind of appreciate it. That's a good thing, right? And what you want to do, or what I would want to do if I was ever making a game, is that when a person thinks back about the game, they think fondly about these things. They're like, oh yeah, this and that happened, and that was interesting, and I had feelings about that. And yeah, man, it's such a wasted opportunity. It's such a great franchise, a great universe. I think I've seen some rumors and whatever that there's gonna be some follow-up in the Mass Effect universe with another game or something else, but I hope they do better. Will I give the next game a shot? I think I would not buy it on day one. So if Andromeda, I think I pretty much bought it on day one, but like, whatever game comes next, I will wait for the reviews and the conversations around it, and I will probably wait until it's on discount before I buy it. Whereas on the other hand, with The Witcher 3, it's so good that I now care about Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's going to be great because it's made by the same team, and I'm going to buy that on day one. So that's kind of my thought processes. That's it for my Andromeda review. Let me know what your opinions and thoughts are in the comments. Done.